Hi to everyone. This is Anne from Book Carnival, and I'm delighted to welcome Warren Easley today with his latest book, No Witness. It's number 8 in the Cal Claxton series, and some interesting things to talk about with this one, Warren, but welcome. We're so happy to have you.
Well, thank you very much, Anne. And I just want to say I miss you. And I wish I were there, but this is great.
We wish that too.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Yes, we do.
And I want to thank everybody that's out there. I can't see you. I see a couple of photographs, but I want to thank you all. I know, we all have a zillion things to do these days. And for you to take an hour out and listen to my ramblings about a book is really very nice. And I thank you very much for it. And I just wanted to say, support your indie bookshops like Anne's, one of the best out there. Our indie bookshops are a national treasure, and they need our help more than ever. And, it's been a rough year, and now we got another year coming in with a lot of question marks. So, Jeff Bezos doesn't need your money. So anyway, that's my short commercial.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome, man. We were hoping this would be in store, and we got all excited about it. And I haven't seen Anne in quite a while, and so we were both a little bit disappointed, I would say. But in the spirit of kind of laughing at adversity, I went online and I tried to find some jokes about the pandemic. Okay. And I got to tell you, there aren't a lot of them out there. There are a lot of jokes that make fun of people that don't wear masks or people that don't get vaccinated. I didn't want to go negative, but I did find a couple.
Okay.
So I'm going to share it with you to begin with. So, okay, here's the first one. I really like this one. Day 121 at home, and the dog is looking at me like, see?
You want to sit in this page, you have it plugged in.
Oh, please mute
There you
yourself.
go.
Please mute.
Thank you, magic person.
Sir, sorry, we can hear you. Would you
Will I
please
be in
mute?
the screen?
No, I turned the video off for you.
You're not off.
We good?
I think so. Until they
I'm going to
talk
tell the
again.
joke again.
Yeah, it's okay.
I'm going to repeat this.
Sir, excuse me, you have to mute yourself.
Yeah, please mute.
John,
It sounds good, man.
I can only do so much from this end. Please mute.
Okay, silence.
All right, let's try that joke again, please.
It's not that good, but day 121 at home, and the dog is looking at me like, see, this is why I chew the furniture. That's number one. And I like this one. The quarantine really put a damper on comedy. For months, nobody walked into a bar. And
That's a good one. I like that.
And finally, this one. We're going to have to retire the expression, avoid it like the plague, since it turns out we humans just don't do that. Okay. Yeah.
We need some laughter. I
I
like
have
that.
Yeah. I really searched to find those three. So I have a special surprise for you today.
Oh,
One of the characters in the book is here and dropped by and wants to have a little cameo. So if you'll just bear with me for a minute, I'll get him.
okay.
Hang on.
That's exciting.
Yes. Well, he's probably the most popular character in the books. Okay, this is Archie. I guess I should call him Archie Claxton, but Archie is 8 months old. He's a tricolor Aussie. He's a mini, and he's more or less runs the household. I find myself up at 6:30 every morning taking him for a long walk, for example, and that used to be some reading time for me. But yeah, the tricolor in the books, Archie, is really modeled after Buddy. He's a tricolor that we had for 14 years. And Buddy passed years ago. And so Archie, and Buddy had this huge personality. And so it was really easy. It's very easy for me to write him in the books. And it turns out that Archie has an equally big personality. So I think going forward, I'm going to have plenty of inspiration. So I just wanted you to meet him.
Oh, we love Archie. He's very handsome.
Okay, so let me talk a little bit about the book. Actually, I wrote this book in 2019. It was done at the latter part of 2019, but a couple of things happened. First of all, my publisher, Poison Pen, got sold decided to sell the business to Source Books, which is a big outfit out of Chicago.
Right.
And so so now Poison Pen is the mystery imprint for Source Books. So that plus the pandemic, caused the delay. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot. One thing that Sourcebook's going to do is republish all my books with new covers and some more bells and whistles. Like the first one was published last May, Matters of Doubt, and it had an interview with me. It had an overview of the series. It had questions for book clubs, that sort of thing. So we'll see how that goes, but right now I'm pretty excited about that. This particular book, when I finished book 7, I was looking around, as I usually do, for something to get my teeth into, and it turned out, about 4 things came together when I suddenly said, oh, guess what? I have the raw material for a book. First thing was the Trump's, remember the ICE raids that Trump decided to do in 2018, and ICE being the Immigrant Control Enforcement. And there were raids going on all over the country, but they really hit hard in Oregon, in the Willamette Valley, where we have a lot of immigrant labor that they work on they work in the vineyards, they work in the nurseries, and they work in a huge amount of agriculture that goes on there. So it was a tremendous impact on Oregon. And, a lot of these people had been here for 20, 30 years, had families, had kids in school, and suddenly they were finding themselves up in Tacoma at a detention center awaiting deportation. So that was something that interested me. And at the same time, I got interested in the dreamers, and these are the kids that were brought over here with a lot of these immigrants at a very early age. So they're essentially Americans, but they don't have passports, and they're not citizens because they were brought over here when they were maybe 1, 6 months, a year. So, but they know nothing other than this country, and they're because they're not documented, they're facing deportation. So I was interested in the dreamers, and I wanted to make a dreamer a central character in this book. All right. The other thing then that occurred to me was that if you had an immigrant community that was under a lot of fear, if there was a murder that occurred, they'd be very unwilling to cooperate with the police. I thought that was an interesting premise. And I thought maybe that would be a way to draw Cal in, and maybe the family of the victim asked Cal to investigate the crime. So those were a couple of things that came together that really intrigued me. The next thing was my editor at the time. I have a new editor now, but my editor then said, Cal has had a lot of relationships with some very strong, very interesting women, but they've never had any legs. They never they never last into the second book. And so she said, you know, maybe you should think about in your next book, giving a relationship maybe that has a chance of lasting. So I listened to that, and you know, I didn't really completely agree. I said, okay, I'll look at that, but I've really got to run that by Cal because, you know, I never know what the hell he's going to do. So there was that. And then, yeah, the last item, and this is the fourth, I guess. The last item was I was interested in looking at the impact of a tragedy on a family as basically as a means of, first of all, challenging myself creatively, and also to give my books more emotional impact. So I had that element. And once I had those four components, the next thing I do, and this really came together very quickly in a couple of weeks. I think about who are the characters going to be in the book, and then I start writing. I don't outline, and so basically it's a mystery for me as well. I really don't know exactly how it's going to come out, and I just keep asking myself as I get to know the characters better and better, what would this character do in this situation? Another aspect, maybe something you might be interested in, is the research I did for this book. Now, it was a little tricky because, you know, we're crossing cultures here, and there would be a lot of ways to screw this up. And so I read everything I could get my hands on ICE, on illegal immigration and all that whole drama. And there were two books that I wanted to just mention that were very key. This book is called, I'll just show it to you because I think it's so good, Dreamers, An Immigrant Generation's Fight for the American Dream by Eileen Truax. And this is basically a compilation of interviews with actual dreamers, kids that are in this country, they're facing deportation, but they're going to grad school, they're working, they're doing all kinds of things. Young kids, you know. And so I thought that was interesting because I was going to have a dreamer in the book. The other one that I thought was very good is Coyotes by Ted Conover. I have a little sequence where there's a border crossing and I needed to understand what was going on there. And Ted Conover is, you know, a great journalist. He basically disguised himself as and went to Mexico and came across with a coyote, with a group of young men, and actually it was one woman in the group. And then he came over here and he lived with them in Arizona and in Southern California. And then he went back and came back with another group, and then he wrote this book. So this is everything you want to know about coyotes, which I found really, really moving and fascinating. Okay, that was the research. Yeah, the other thing that happened, it was kind of really surprised me. I was talking early on in the process. I was talking to my younger daughter, Kate, who's incidentally in grad school getting an MFA in creative writing. But at the time, I mentioned this premise about the dreamer, and she said, "Well, you know, I went to college with a dreamer, and oh, and Mariana, she's going to law school now." Well, that's exactly. Turns out that's exactly the kind of thing that I was thinking about, and I kind of went, "What? Can you set me up with Mariana?" And what happened was she agreed to talk to me. I wrote out about a 5-page questionnaire. She filled it out, mailed it back to me, and then we spent an afternoon discussing it. She lived the whole process from a very early age when she could hardly remember coming here, and it's now in law school. So I had at that piece, which really helped me, you know, have some confidence that I was writing in the right direction. And then when I finished the manuscript, I asked Mariana to read it. She read it. And so I think I'm on pretty safe ground in terms of the cultural aspects. I think a fair question you might ask at this time is, why do you choose hot button issues, hot button social issues for your books? You know, this is a hyper polarized environment right now. And, you know, you run some risk of losing some readers. I've gotten that question from a number of interviewers, and I really had to stop and think about it because in truth, it kind of happened naturally. So I thought, you know, why did that happen? Well, the first thing is, you know, Hemingway said, write what you know. And I say, write what interests you. And I'm very interested. I'm kind of a political junkie, I admit it. And I'm kind of interested in these issues. And the other thing for me, it's kind of a no-brainer because the social issues are fraught with human conflict by their very nature. So, you know, and that's what makes a good mystery go around. It's the conflict. So there was that. The other thing, and probably the most important for me, was the fact that I really don't want to write just something that's you know, it's easy reading. It's for a beach. It doesn't challenge the reader very much. I wanted these books to stand for something, you know. But at the same time, they're mysteries. They're mysteries first and foremost. But I like to have something in the books that makes a reader think, and I think this is something that for a lot of readers, I want to attract. They find that appealing. I never preach. Basically, the social issues are woven into the plot, and they're kind of a narrative framework that I can hang the story on. Don't always write about hot button issues, but when I do, that's kind of the approach that I take. Let's see, I think, oh yeah, what I want to do now, just to kind of emphasize that, is read you something that inspires me. And this is a quote by Marion Dane Bauer. She's a writer. She actually writes children's books, but they're really good children's books. And this is on the power of fiction. The power of fiction is that it gives us, as readers, the opportunity to move inside another human being, to look out through that person's eyes, hear with her ears, think with his thoughts, feel with her feelings. It is the only form of art which can accomplish that feat so deeply and so completely. So that's my inspiration. Let me read a couple of things. I'm going to put my glasses on for that. No witness.
Okay. And let me, while you're looking that up, remind everyone that the chat is on and type your questions in so that we can ask.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and by the way, that's my favorite part of these. Giving a speech is not my favorite, but answering questions about the craft is something that I love. I want to start with the epigraphs in the book. You know, the epigraphs are those little one-liners that are in the front of the book that give you a hint of maybe what the theme of the book might be, or what was on the author's mind maybe when he was writing it. And so I picked two that I really like. The first one is from another former president, and it goes like this: I have always found that mercy bears richer fruits than strict justice. And you'll find if you read this book, the question of, you know, in the rule of law, is there any room for compassion? You know, or is it strictly the rule of law? That is a question that comes up in this book a lot. I'm not going to give you an answer, but I'll give you enough information that you can think about it, and maybe you'll draw your own conclusions. about that question. The second one that I really like, a very short one from a guy named Max Frisch. Turns out he's a Swiss playwright. We asked for workers. We got people instead. And I'll let you just think about that and let it soak in. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to read just 3 very brief excerpts and kind of introduce a couple of characters. The first scene, all you need to know is that Cal is in his office and a young man has come in looking for a job. Okay. And we'll start right in the middle of their conversation. And Cal says, "What kind of help?" And an office manager or something like that, "I'd be glad to fill out an application." An application? I had to chuckle. This is a one-man operation. I motioned toward a chair facing my desk. "Have a seat." A few inches shorter than me, he had a crop of wavy black hair, neatly faded on the sides, dark eyebrows, arched over luminous brown eyes, and a squared off, slightly dimpled chin. He sat down as a look of disappointment spread across his face. "What made you think of this particular law office?" His face became animated and he squared his shoulders. "I read about the case you handled for that kid from Coos Bay, Kenny Sanders. I admire what you did, Mr. Claxton." Now that turns out that's book 7. He was referring to an effort that resulted in the exoneration of a young man serving a life term for a murder he didn't commit. "It's Cal, thanks. We caught a couple of breaks on that case for sure, and I had a lot of help." Mateo leaned forward in his chair, his hands planted firmly on his knees. "I want to be a lawyer, Mr. Claxton. I want to do work like that to defend people and help change the criminal justice system for the better." The words may have had a ring of naivete, but his jaw was set, his voice firm. I smiled again, out of surprise this time. "Change the system from the inside, huh?" "Yes, that's where I want to start." He allowed a modest smile. "Maybe politics down the road." I chuckled. "Well, that's a well-worn path. Are you going to school?" "I'm trying to finish up at Chemeketa in McMinnville. I can never say that word. I want to get an associate degree and transfer to the University of Oregon next year, poli-sci, in law school." "How are your grades?" "Mostly A so far, high school too." "Good work, sounds like an excellent plan." "I need to save for tuition." He leveled his eyes at me. "I'm tired of flipping burgers. I want to get some experience in the field I plan to work in." I leaned back in my chair and glanced at the ugly stacks of unfiled papers, but thoughts of offloading such stacks were quickly interrupted by a practical voice residing in the corner of my brain. "Help around the office would be nice," it said, "but the kid has 0 experience. And besides," the voice went on, "if you're paying your bills, there usually isn't much money left over." The truth was, however, I hardly ever listened to that voice, and damn it, I liked the kid's chutzpah. If I had any work, and I'm not saying I do, it wouldn't be glamorous like what you see on TV. Most lawyering is tedious, detailed work. The law is a thing of beauty, but she's also a bitch. I stopped there to gauge his reaction. His eyes lit up. "I don't care. I want to learn the job from the bottom up, Mr. Claxton or Cal." And I'll stop there. Now, when he leaves, he gives Cal a business card. And Cal looks at the business card and it says, "Timoteo Fuentes, dreamer and DACA recipient, college student and future lawyer." And he gives his phone number. Okay. So that's my dreamer, Timoteo. And I want to go now to, it turns out later in the same day, Cal has a neighbor, if you've read the series, Gertrude Johnson. She lives above him in a 5-acre spread, and they both look south into the Willamette Valley, down in the wine country. And she's his bookkeeper and also his confidant. So Cal's been telling her about the visit from this kid while he's chopping some wood for her. So we'll just pick up the conversation there. And Gertie says, if you keep the kids' hours below, say, 20 a week, you should be okay. She laughed. If you train him to keep better track of your billable hours, he could pay for himself. Creative minds like mine balk at scut work, Gertie, I said, suppressing a smile as I put my back into a swing that halved another round. She rolled her eyes dramatically. Right. Trouble is, scut work puts cash in the till. I teed up another chunk of cedar. Okay, point taken. He seems to be a smart kid. He's a dreamer. He looked at me. They all are at that age. No, I mean, he's undocumented, but he grew up here in the States. Oh, of course, those kids, my God. How could you deport someone who spent their whole lives here, no matter where they came from? That's just fat out wrong. He gave me a card with a cell phone number on it. It said he was a DACA recipient too. Whack, I split another cedar round. Gertie furrowed her brow. I don't know what DACA stands for, but I do know that it's something that Obama did to protect those kids, right? That's right. It stands for Deferred Action on Childhood Arrivals. In other words, we'll defer decisions on deporting dreamers until we can get a final resolution in Congress. Gertie made a sour face. I thought our current president killed that program. No mercy for the unwitting lawbreakers. He tried about 2 years ago, and it's being fought in the courts now. It'll wind up in the Supreme Court, and indeed it will. It's coming up. Well, this whole damn immigration thing needs fixing. She swept a hand toward the rolling landscape falling away to the south of us and shook her head. Without immigrant labor, the wine industry wouldn't exist here, or it'd be just a rich man's hobby for producing a trickle of wine. And you can bet a high percentage of those workers are undocumented. I agreed, and at the same time felt an unexpected twinge of guilt. She was right. The explosive growth of vineyards in the Red Hills have been driven by an immigrant workforce, men and women willing to do backbreaking labor, work that most Americans shun. They worked in the vineyards surrounding me and then retreated into a world I knew very little about and had very little appreciation for. That seemed wrong somehow, even shameful. Okay. And now we'll go to the final one. And Gertie, it turns out at this scene, just to say, Gertie has had a health incident and her niece has come to take care of her. Her niece is a PhD psychologist, a professor at the University of Puget Sound, and she's on sabbatical because she's writing a book. And so she and Cal have met, and it's kind of a humorous meeting, but I didn't get onto that. And so she's come over to figure out how to cook salmon on a cedar plank. And Cal, as you know, likes to cook. And so Gertie has sent her over to find this out. So he's been telling her about it. We'll pick that up in the middle. Zoe waited, and when I didn't continue, looked incredulous. That's it? I drank some beer and chuckled. Cook it slowly. At medium heat, the plank should begin to char about the time the fish is done. The fish is cooked when the little white globules of fat begin percolating to the surface. The thin end of the fillet will cook faster, so cut through it and take the salmon off a section at a time. That way, it'll be evenly cooked. Zoe showed a look of almost childlike enthusiasm. I think I can do that. What's the plank for anyway? Flavor and moisture, it adds both. The Columbia River tribes cook their salmon that way. They should know, she said, then sipped some beer as the breeze ruffled her hair. She studied me for a moment and her look grew softer. How are you coping? I took a long pull at my beer. Better. I decided to get involved after talking to Mateo and his father this morning. That seemed to help, you know? Doing rather than stewing? Yeah, something like that. I'm curious, what convinced you to get involved? The local police are in a weak position. I won't say they're going to get stonewalled, but they're sure as hell not going to get the full cooperation of the migrant community here. I'm thinking I can use Carlos and Mateo to run interference for me. Maybe I can fill in some blanks and help find the bastard who did this. That's noble, she said with no trace of sarcasm. But it sounds tricky. I mean, you'll be working kind of a shadow case and with people who are in this country illegally. Yeah, I'll be walking a high wire between client confidentiality and the need to turn evidence over to the investigating team. The family isn't under any suspicion, so that makes it easier. Did you learn anything this morning? I took another drink of beer and regarded her for a moment. She sat erect, her slender neck thrust forward and her facial features drawn up in rapt attention. She had Gertie's forthright manner, and I sensed her curiosity sprang purely from a desire to help, or at least to understand. I did, I answered, but there are confidentiality issues. Of course, she said. I'm curious how you go about something like this, and maybe I can help in some way, from a psychological standpoint. She showed a smile, but it was clear the offer was serious. So, could be the beginning of something. So I'll stop there and open it up for questions.
Okay. Did you base Tim Mateo on anyone in particular?
I did not. No. I just, he just kind of came to me. I knew immediately kind of the character I wanted. So yeah, it's really important for me to understand my characters because they really drive the story. They're completely character driven. And if I don't know them, then I can drive off in the wrong direction. But I knew Tim Mateo very, very quickly.
Do you have, you said you had 2.5 acres. Do you ever hire help there?
I do, yes. I do. Yeah.
We have the same issue in Orange County. If we didn't have these workers picking,
yes,
half the stuff wouldn't get done.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Clementi's been coming here for about 22 years, and he's like family.
Did you run into, well, you did so much research. I'm sure you had everything at your fingertips, but did you find any particular part of the book difficult to deal with?
Yeah, I think and I'm not going to say very much about this, but because it's so crucial, but the tragedy that happens was really difficult to write, and yeah, it was very moving for me. Even when I got amazingly, when I got the manuscript back from my editor, and I was going back through it, when I got to that part, and it choked me up pretty good. So yeah, that, and all the philosophical questions around compassion versus the rule of law. I did a lot of reading about that, but I can tell you it is a very complex question. And the scholars are divided on the issue, by the way, as you probably might imagine.
Right.
Yeah. So, I didn't try to answer any questions. I try to lay the thing out there. And because, Cal and Zoe, they're throwing this thing back and forth, and they don't really, it's just tough.
No, it would be. I think it is for everyone because you feel for the students, the young people.
Yes.
They don't know any different. And you would be sending them, you're not sending them home, you're sending them to a foreign country.
Yeah.
So it's
a lot of them they're mad at their parents too. Now they're mad at the government for threatening to deport them, and they're mad as hell at the parents for doing this to them and putting them in this position. And you'll see that there's another character in the book who has that he has that issue with his parents.
But what would be the alternative? They would have grown up in Mexico and not had the opportunities.
Yes, yeah, of course, there are really good arguments, and of course the whole thing is about people that want a better life for themselves and their families, and that's kind of a basic human need.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
which what drove us to move across the country and find new places to live, or new, in olden days, and still doing it today, but with a little more ease.
Yeah.
But we were always on the move to find a better place to live or more land to operate with.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And these people that come across, I mean, we think that they don't just walk across. I mean, it is really a harrowing experience just to get over here. And of course, the laws, they're winking at them, saying if you come over here, you can make good money, and we won't hassle you too much because we need the labor. And so there's that. And so they're drawn here,
Sure.
America, they're drawn here by this promise of a better life and more money, and the fact that most of the time they won't be hassled if they get across. But you have to get across the border, so that's kind of the deal.
I find it amazing. You talked about the book Coyote by Ted Carr, I think it was.
Yeah, Conover. Yeah.
Okay. Very brave of him to do it once, much less twice.
Yeah.
That must have been very risky.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I think he wound up making some really close friends that he didn't expect. And it's an extremely moving book.
Now, his name doesn't give it away, but was he Hispanic?
No. In fact, was he Australian or something? He wasn't an American.
But even more, he wouldn't have fit in with the typical group, I wouldn't have thought.
No, he had to kind of really be careful. He kind of wore a baseball cap and shades and had old clothes on and tried to blend in.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. It wasn't easy for him to blend in.
No. We have a question that says, is it important to read the series in order?
No, it is not. I don't, each book is standalone. The only advantage to reading them in order, you know the recurring characters better as the books progress. But each book is, you can understand it completely without having read anything else.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's always, it's always a good point.
Yeah.
For someone that's new to your series.
Yes.
I'm going to keep going because they haven't finished typing yet, giving me questions.
All right.
Source Books, I've noticed, has done this in several instances where they have taken over, not necessarily bookstores, but brought in other people, and they're building their family, if you will.
Yes. They are.
And seem to be doing a really good job of it.
Yeah, they are. They're very thoughtful. I like what they've done so far, and they're very aggressive. They want to sell books, and but they want to sell them in the right way. So yeah, I'm glad to be associated with them.
Yes, they promote really well.
Yes.
For authors that I've noticed in the past didn't get that much promotion.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. It says, you've chosen a controversial issue. I'm wondering if you've heard from regular readers who aren't as sympathetic to the Dreamers.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Thank you.
Very seldom do I hear anything negative. So I guess people probably just put the book down and don't bother to communicate. I have lost two cousins of mine that are quite conservative are pissed off at me, but and really I don't try and grind any particular axe, but Cal is who he is, and the way I try to do it is that the actions and the opinions that have to be authentically come out of the characters as I develop them. And so Cal is, he's been through a lot, and so he's got a lot of compassion because of the death of his wife and the fact that he's come to reinvent himself, and he's become kind of a champion of the little guy in a sense, because he's working instead of as a hotshot prosecutor in LA, and that was a job that he had before his wife committed suicide, and now he's a one-man lawyer looking at the criminal justice system from the opposite point of view.
Mhm.
And you see what resources that the prosecutors have compared to the defense. And so, yeah, he's had quite a change. So that's who he is. So if he expresses something that could be, defined as liberal, it's because that's who the guy is. That's who I wrote. And if somebody's more conservative, like Nando, Nando is a Cuban exile that he actually rode over to from Cuba in 4 days in a raft that it took him 10 years to build in Cuba. And Nando is a capitalist. He wants to make money, but he also has a good heart. And so, so Nando will express more conservative points of view because that's his authentic self. And so that's kind of the way I approach it. And I try not to preach. If I preach and, that's not good. People have to make their minds up.
No, but you have to make the character in character with who
Yes.
he is.
Yeah, they have to be authentic.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's what I've always enjoyed about your books. You have always covered some rather serious issues without preaching.
Yeah.
Or without necessarily forcing your point of view or even Kel's, because he does see the other side.
Yeah, that's the idea. And, I have a couple that are more or less conventional mysteries. But most of them have some kind of couple of hot button issues that kind of go through animate a lot of the plot.
Well, I think that just stirs people up.
Yeah.
I have another question here.
Yes.
Your books often have many characters with great character development. When you're in the midst of the creative process, do you sometimes get stuck, then add a character or two as a way forward? Or do you have to figure out how they all fit together after you have introduced them all?
Yeah, I guess, it's a really good question. I don't
Complicated one.
often add characters. That would be interesting. I'd do it if I had to, if I'm really stuck. I think for me, it's a question of really getting to know the characters. And that's very important. And the way I understand characters is through dialogue. And so there's a lot of dialogue in my books because that's just, I literally will start a scene and the characters start talking to each other. And then I get into their heads and then I start to understand them better because one person says something and the other person has to respond. And in doing that, I discover who they are. So so I'll sometimes get down the road and understand that, well, this this character is a little bit different. I might have to go back and repair some things earlier to make that consistent. But it's all about characters with me.
Mm-hmm. One of the questions that's always of interest to people is what your process is. Do you have a routine that you stick to or not?
I had a routine. I think the pandemic kind of screwed it up some, but I don't know why. It just did. I had plenty of time, but I was distracted. But
we all relate to that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I try to write every day. Even if it's a short amount, I try to write in the morning when I'm fresh. Yeah, but the new puppy has gotten in the way a little bit. The furry tornado, we call him. And then I try usually at night after everything settles down, sneak back in and get some more done. When I'm really clicking, I can do 5 pages every other day or so. 5 pages is a chapter. If I can get a chapter in 2 days, I'm very happy.
Oh yeah.
I like short chapters, so if I can get a chapter in a couple of days, I'm pleased. I don't go forward until I feel good about what I have. I can't just keep going. Like some people they'll just write the first draft and there'll be all kinds of issues in it. I can't do that. So I need to be pretty confident that what I've got is working and before I add any more to it. And I always go back well, when I start writing, I always go back to the beginning of the chapter that I was working on and start there and move forward. I don't go way back, just back to the chapter I was working on and go forward.
Are there some parts of your books that you enjoy writing more, or some parts of the plot that you enjoy working on more than others?
Oh, first of all, I like dialogue. So I love writing dialogue. I could write dialogue all day.
That's amazing. Some people say that's the hardest thing to do.
Yeah, I get lost in the dialogue. Yeah, I do like, I like action scenes. I don't, there are not a lot of them, but when they're in there, they're for real. I like action scenes. I like thinking about the choreography of an action scene.
Okay.
Yeah, and I love working that out to make sure that it really makes sense. Where the characters are and what they're doing, and so yeah, I like that a lot.
Always people are interested in what an author's background is. What did you do before, and what brought you to writing?
Well, I went to UC Riverside as in undergraduate school and majored in chemistry, got a BA in chemistry. They gave Bachelor's of Arts there. And then I went on to Cal at Berkeley. It was in the late 60s. I do remember some of it. And I got a PhD in physical chemistry because I had to make a living. I always liked to write, but I didn't feel it was, anything that offered me any kind of security. So, but it turned out that writing did help in my career. I did research and development and international business. And it turned out that writing was being able to write fairly clearly was really good. And the other side of that is that I think being forced to write clearly has helped my prose. Because in business writing, you really have to get down to the point quickly, and you have to go for absolute clarity if you want to succeed, get your message across. And so I think that really helped my prose. I don't know whether all the readers would agree with me, but it seems to me that that's an asset. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I retired, I retired once, and I came out here to Oregon and worked 6 more years with another company, and then retired a second time. And that's when I decided to start writing. And what happened was I was reading a lot of mysteries, and my wife and I both love mysteries. And my brother said, you should read this guy, James Lee Burke, and the Dave Robichaux series. And I hadn't read them. And I went, oh, okay, I'll try that. And so I read Burke, and it was like getting struck by lightning. I just like, oh, yes, that's what, I want to do something like that. Burke is set in the Gulf Coast. It's very atmospheric. The Gulf Coast is kind of a character in the books. And what I wanted to do was set my books in Oregon. I love this place, and kind of make Oregon a character in my books. And so that's kind of so it was Burke. Burke really I read a lot of other authors, but it was Burke that just drove me. I said, boy, you know what, I'm going to try. And I wrote 4 full-length novels, and over about a 9-year period, and they were all turned down. And then, but the 4th one was accepted, and I got a 3-book contract based on that book, and that was Matters of Doubt. Uh-huh. And then, so yeah, that's how I got started. But yeah, I had to put my time in. I didn't know what I was doing. I took a 5-week course, a fiction writing 5-week course that was offered here in Portland, and read everything I could get my hands on, and just started writing. And the first book was absolute disaster. It wasn't good at all. But by the fourth one, I'd kind of, and when I did the fourth one, I figured, okay, really, this is it. This is about as good as I can do. And if this doesn't work, then maybe I should think about something else.
But we're glad it worked and you didn't do that. No, we've enjoyed your series, and I think you've been with us at Book Carnival for every one of them, which is wonderful.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
what?
I had to talk you into letting me come the first time.
And look how great that turned out. We had a party. There were all kinds of people.
Yeah.
You have some of the most loyal fans and old friends, I know.
I know.
It's always a joy when they're there. So we have to do this, even if we're talking about the same book, we have to do this later in the year when it's safe for everyone.
Well, that would be fun.
What are you planning for the next one? Or do you want to talk about that at all?
Well, I got, I have 70,000 words done. And it's interesting. I guess I'd say it's about an almost perfect murder that Cal has to figure out what the hell happened. So it's more or less more conventional.
Mm-hmm.
But the key is that it takes place during the pandemic.
Oh.
So yeah, I just decided. A lot of authors are punting on that decision and just kind of pretending it's not there. I decided to just take it head on and see what I could do with it, and kind of make the pandemic as like a character in the book.
Sure.
Yeah, because it's always a worry. So yeah, I'm working on that one. I hope to have that one done in maybe 6 weeks, if I'm lucky.
Uh-huh.
I kind of see a sense of how it's going to end.
So about another year, roughly the same time, you think, for next year?
Yeah, we'll see. I don't have a contract yet with Sourcebooks, so we'll see if they like it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I have to present it to Sourcebooks, so we'll see.
But if they don't, there are other publishers.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
we want it.
I think it's a good book. We'll see what happens.
Okay. That's wonderful. Do we have any more questions now before we let him off the hook here? Karen, are you, do you have a question? Okay.
Yes, I do. These characters with your dialogue that you enjoy writing, do you work the dialogue out on paper as you start writing it, or do you work it out ahead of time in your head?
Neither one. It comes as I write it. Yeah. As
you're writing.
Yeah, I have a sense of what the scene's going to be. Bring two people. If it's two people, I bring them together. There's certain things I want to accomplish as a result of the dialogue, and I just start writing it and let it go and let them play off each other until I get whatever points I wanted to get across. I get those in, and I'm satisfied with it. It usually takes several cuts. I write it, I go back through it, and then I write. I go back through it. It usually takes 3 or 4 cuts before I get it right.
Yeah. I would think that would be the most difficult part, but then I'm not a writer, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Warren, this has been wonderful. Your books, Warren's books are in the store. We have back issues as well as the current one. So visit Book Carnival, and we look forward. We'll talk about a pseudo event later in the year so that we can have all your friends together. I always enjoy that. He has how many roughly? It's over 30, I know, that you went to school with.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I
and
love
they
them
come.
all.
They always come, and it's
Yes.
wonderful.
Yeah.
It's more like a class reunion than it is a book event. So thank you again for your time today. We enjoyed it very much.
You're welcome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Yeah, that was fun. Thank you very much.
It was. You take care now. We'll see you
Okay,
soon.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks everybody for being with us. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.